Well, you know what they say. Heavy is the head that wears the crown and all that. The Penguin has wrapped up. We have episode 8, the finale. This, I'm trying to think about where to start talking about this. This was a fitting, appropriate, and correct, I think, in a lot of ways, ending for this show and these characters. But I'm not sure how much I like it. And I don't mean that as a criticism. What I mean is sometimes following through characters to their natural end is unsatisfying. And maybe sometimes that's even the point. I'm not sure if that was intended to be the point here, or if they tried to do some stuff that was supposed to hit me in a way that it just didn't. But I came away going like, I don't feel great having watched that. But when I try to examine any single part, by and large, I'm going, yeah, but that was good though. Yeah, but that's what should have happened though. So I'm inclined at this just having watched the damn thing stage to say that it does a very good job of wrapping up a story that could not have ended in a truly satisfying way. Because given the characters, given their conflicts, given what was going on, this was going to end badly for most, if not all of them. And it basically did. And sometimes, even watching something as dark and bleak and just down in the mud as this is, there's still a part of your brain that goes, yeah, but what if it works out? I think even when you're taking in a story that is not giving on its own any indication that it's going to end with things being okay or good in any way, whether it be in a grand moral sense or for the characters specifically, that even when you're taking in those stories, there's still a part of your brain that like wants a happy ending. Except when I try and examine that part of my thought, I'm like, what the hell would that even look like on this show? I don't know. And that fact alone tells me that it's almost kind of an irrational desire and something that I think exists almost kind of separately from watching this. But okay, where do we want to go? They did do some of what I was worried about with Julian and with Oswald's mother. And the whole him using his psychiatric background to manipulate her and get information out of her, which I said last time it was clear that it happened, but I was grateful I didn't have to see it. And I kind of had to see it here. Not really, though. They did manage to present it in a way that didn't make me uncomfortable in the way that what I was afraid they were going to do would have. Because what I was afraid they were going to do is they were going to have an extended session and we were going to have to sit down and watch this guy grill, manipulate, and gaslight her until she said the things that he and Sophia wanted to hear. And I didn't want that. Instead, we got her perspective, which is just a reliving of what did in fact happen. At least that is what we are presented. Is it possible she's misremembering somewhat given her mental state? Yeah, that's absolutely a possibility, but that gets down the unreliable narrator. Oh, maybe they're lying. Ooh, maybe they misremembered rabbit hole, and that's a rabbit hole that never ends. So I'm not going to go there. I'm going to take it at face value because I feel like the show moves forward on the premise that what we see of her memory of things is accurate. It was really interesting to see even some crossover with some of the flashback stuff, but it's not the actress who is playing young Frances. It was the actress that we've had for most of it. That alone gave it a little bit of a different feel and a different flavor. So she knew from fairly early on that Oswald was responsible for the death of her boys. And this also seems to be leaning into the idea that Oz knew that that was going to be an outcome, which if you watch my review of the last episode, I kind of liked that. I didn't think, at least, that it was particularly clear whether he intended them to drown or not. At least at the point when he initially shut the door. But this seems to be leaning a little bit more into the notion that he did, which I don't know. I don't love. I guess I find it more interesting when a character does something and then rolls and it goes in a direction they didn't think of or didn't expect and then rolls with the consequences than someone who knew what they were doing the whole time, especially when you're talking about a kid. Like, and again, I'm not saying that the young Oswald isn't old enough to have had the kind of thoughts that he clearly had. Obviously he did, but I don't know. I just find it slightly less interesting. The idea that he did it on purpose. I don't know. But moving on from that, I think, the confrontation between him and his mother was uncomfortable in a way that I think was effective. Boy, did it kind of snap me out of it when she broke that bottle and stabbed him in the gut. Holy crap. Yeah, that that got me, and especially because like the snapping point for her was her realizing he was going to let them cut her finger off. And when she calls him a coward, calls him spineless, because he won't admit what he did and he'd rather let her get hurt. And it's not that he wants his mother hurt, but when push comes to shove, that's the choice he's going to make. And she gets confronted with that, and I think her reaction to that tracks. I think that makes sense. I think it was a real good way to get Oz to ascend to power, appealing to a couple of things. First, Vic kind of picking up the torch that Oz laid down, this idea of appealing to the people who haven't had a shot, which is how Oz kind of initially got the gangs on his side. But, those heads of gangs are still the heads of gangs. They usually end up on top. And so Vic roping in Link, and then as a result, the snowballing of that, basically the not second in command, but like the lieutenants who are never going to be more than that in these gangs, just taking out the top people because they're tired of being overlooked. Because I think it makes sense. I think for whatever else you think about Oz, I think he does understand the frustration of people who think they're made for more, and he knows how to harness that. And Vic was picking up what Oz was putting down on that note. So that, I think that tracked, that made sense in a way that like could have felt contrived, but didn't. That actually felt well set up and earned, given the way that Oz was getting people on his side, even if temporarily up to that point. It was always as appealing to the notion of you deserve better than you've got. So that outcome feels like a very natural outgrowth of that. Sophia. I do feel bad for Sophia. That having been said, there was something that there was a little, oh, you son of a bitch, smile on my face when he takes her out to the river, tells her to turn around, and she's waiting to get shot, and then the cops just show up and Oz is already gone. Oh boy. The idea of her getting a letter from Selena is interesting. I'll be curious to see how much any of this actually gets picked up in like the Batman 2 or anything else, just because this covered a little bit more than I think you could cover in a few scant lines of dialogue. Well, I suppose you could try, as long as you keep the focus on what's currently happening and don't sink too much time into it. But like a lot happened, a lot went down, and if Sophia's just gonna show up, that would be like she wasn't even introduced in the original movie. So I'm not going to hold out a ton of hope for a follow-up on the connection between Sophia and Selena, just because that's a real big thing to stick into your movies where people who didn't watch the show have no context for it. So I'm not going to hold out a ton of hope. I think the idea of Oswald currently being on top, yeah, you can cover that with a line or two. There was a gang war, he ended up on top. Like that's easy-ish to cover, and it's kind of that thing of like, well, wait a minute, how did he pull that off? Well, here's a show if you want to know how he pulled that off. You didn't watch it before, you can watch it now if you think it doesn't make sense. So go watch and see how it made sense. So him ending up where he is does feel like he went through what a character like him is going to need to go through for it. And also like him shaking down the councilman and giving him a story to regurgitate. And again, Oz is really good, not at getting people to trust him, but getting people to do something that will align with his interests that will also benefit them. He's real good at that. He's real good at that. I also actually quite liked the way that they kind of got him in a more traditional look, like at the very end, you know, the bow tie, the vest, kind of the tux look, the top hat. Because there are things like, as much as I love Gotham, the very last episode of Gotham where they show the Riddler and the Penguin in their more traditional outfits, it feels so forced and so crowbarred in. It feels way more natural here because this is what he wanted. He didn't want to be the gangster in the leather jacket on the street corner. He wanted to be the gangster in the tux and the penthouse. And he got it. He got the penthouse in a crappy building with his vegetative mom, giving her, technically, the view he always promised her. I want to talk a little bit about the end with Eve, the call girl that Oz had a kind of, I don't want to say boyfriend, girlfriend. I don't think it was ever really that, but had an arrangement with. Because I have a feeling some people are going to get real weird about that scene. I have an odd feeling some people are going to extrapolate that Oz wanted to bang his mom. That's not what that scene is. That scene actually, if you're paying attention, is a really good representation of what sex work sometimes looks like. Because this is still sex work, even if they do not have sex. And I'm inclined to think, at least on this occasion, they're not going to. The fact that he has to prompt her to say, I love you, I'm proud of you, to me says that this is not standard. Because that was my first wonder. I was like, is this how they generally hook up? Has she been doing this for him? Because that would have leaned into the idea that he just wanted to bang his mom. But the fact that he had to prompt her, that she didn't already know what he wanted to hear, to me says this is the first time they've done this particular situation. And it is unambiguous that he is using Eve as a stand-in for his mother. But she's there to tell him the things that his mother can't, and likely, if she hadn't had a stroke, wouldn't tell him. But he wants to hear, and he's willing to pay to hear. I actually quite like that moment, and it feels respectful of Eve as a sex worker, because not everything sex workers do is dirty and grimy, and sometimes you're acting as proxy therapist. It happens. It can be an odd thing, but it can be a weirdly rewarding thing. It's strange, but yeah, that kind of thing happens. And I liked that moment. And it's a moment that I am afraid is going to be misunderstood, be it deliberately or unintentionally. Vic! That was rough. I think that's probably the moment I'm latching onto the strongest, when I think, yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. That's probably correct. But god damn it. I think Vic falls under that category. And I think the show did a good job of getting Oswald to this point. Because I think this also could have felt contrived. This could have felt tacked on. This could have felt unearned. It could have felt that very easily. because it could have just been like, well, we don't plan on bringing the actor back. Just have Penguin kill him. He probably didn't care about him anyway. No, he did. He did care about Vic. That's the problem. And not to say Oswald would have killed just anybody he felt connected to, but after what he had just gone through with his mother, the person that he did so much to try and protect and keep out of this, not to say that he was a great son, obviously he wasn't, but like he did a lot to try and be sure that she wouldn't get used against him, and she was anyways. And coming almost immediately off the back of that, and sitting down with the one person left who could still be used to hurt you because you care. I don't think Oswald would have killed Vic at any other point in the show other than this one. Well, not for this reason, at any rate. Like, he would have killed him early on in the show because he didn't like him yet. But I don't think it would have happened for this reason at any earlier point, but it makes sense that it happened for this reason here. And it hurt. And it sucked. And it should. And that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of this. I'm not as forwardly praising of this episode as I've been of the series as a whole, but I think that's because it ended at a point that is probably the right point to bring things to a close, but the buildup was exciting, whereas the conclusion is, it is just gonna be a bad ending for everybody. Okay. And that's not a bad thing, or that's not bad storytelling, but it is not exciting. It's not pump you up, oh, this is so good material. It's a little too rough for that, but in a good way. So I think ultimately, while I'm not feeling great, I think that was intended, and I think that makes this successful. And I can't point to anything where I think that shouldn't have been what happened. The Penguin. I think this was good. And yeah, I did smile at that tiny bit at the end. You know, nothing's going to stop me now, and there's the bat signal. So, that's it for this one. What did you think about this? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like and share and subscribe. They all help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now I'd like to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Goddess Elida, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Renabilax the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Ingrid Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Adam RDL Taylor, Pal Barabajoggle, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. They're all calmer this time because they're eating papaya. Whatever works.